And one thing that I like the most, the thing that I like the most is the contribution that it can give in the future. So starting from this law, this very important moment, we hope that we can give a contribution to the actions that Treccani wants to carry out. We would like to extend our publications about the central role of UNESCO in Africa, and also excavations and Italian missions in the Horn of Africa, accompanied by language and cultural courses. We have already seen some grants, some scholarships that we have activated and that we will activate in the future for the exchange of students and researchers, as well as the circular dissemination activity, which today is one of the topics on which Treccani is committed. A dissemination that will allow us to know literature and African literature in particular better. We will try and do the same with combining it with the important history of Italian publications. We also have some activities for the digitalization of cultural heritage with the creation of archives and databases. I think you know, but Treccani is one of the first places in Italy that has digitalized its archives. It was July 1995, and I'm always happy to remind that the president at the time was Miss Rita Levi Montalcini. I was very young and I was called from her to work in Treccani. One morning, she was one of the greatest women I have ever met. She said, I would like that Treccani follows on what is happening in this web world. As you know, she had lived for many years in the United States because she had moved from Italy due to racial laws. She did 2 phone calls, one to IBM and one to a very unknown company at the time, which was Apple. She had 2 teams coming over from IBM and from Apple, and they created the first Treccani website. That's how forward-looking she was. And it was 1995, July 1995. Of course, all free of charge. One thing that surprised me was how much trust people put in this woman. One of our priorities would be to give a voice to a new generations of researchers, intellectuals, artists active in the field of literature, cinema, figurative arts, traditional arts, and digital arts, for a shared effort to talk about the different social, political, economic differences between African countries and our country. We will do that through our first activity for the youth forum that is starting today, as well as seminars and initiatives open to the public. We hope that all of this can have a physical participation in one or more African countries. I really have to thank the staff of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that has been collaborating with us. The coordination of General Nadi was extremely precious, as well as Ambassador Le Monaco, Massimo, Riccardo. They are friends, our friends. And we have to do that thinking that this is a huge opportunity. And I am sure this is going to be one of the biggest realities in our future. We want to do that by contributing to the celebration of the 100 years of Treccani in 2025. This is going to be a new story. It will be the end of a history full of important moments. One of the latest works was dedicated to contemporary art. And we have done that with all the freedom that we always follow. I think it's one of the few institutions that does that. Drafting and writing encyclopedias is not easy. I think we all have overlooked the value of this tool. It's a certified tool. We read every day about the dangers, the geopolitical dangers of false news. And in order not to fall in that trap, we need certified knowledge. In order to have certified knowledge, we need a certified network of collaborations all over the world. This is what Treccani has managed to do in its 100 years, and we should not lose that as a country. I have to say that the protection and the appointment of our president by the President of the Republic, and I would like to thank Ambassador Cassese for being present, is not just the certainty that this history could go on, but that it could go on in the respect of these priorities. I'm convinced that there will be a new season of cultural initiatives that Treccani will coordinate. Tullio Gregori was one of the biggest directors of this place, and he always said that we have to differentiate ourselves from the others. Nobody knows who's written a Treccani work because the community is so wide. Sometimes it's 1,000, 1,500 authors. But Mr. Gregory said that you shouldn't know that. But all of this needs to be aimed at mutual respect, the collaboration with all African countries in order to build together a better future, a future that is more fair and sustainable. I guess that an African proverb says that if we dream alone, it will only be a dream, but if we dream together, reality starts to change. So thank you very much once again to all of you for being here. And I'm going to give the floor to Ambassador Vincenza Lo Monaco, who will also show a PowerPoint presentation of the activities of this first year of IDIAF. Thank you very much.
Grazie, grazie mille Massimo, grazie.
Thank you, Massimo, thank you, dear Alessio, and thank you very much for conveying this message. Thank you for the message, Minister Tajani. We're starting a new path and a great challenge. You'll see the ideas that we are having to promote this dialogue. Today is the first of the days of the Italian and African dialogue. I'm going to illustrate some of the initiatives that we have in mind. Director Brai presented the reasons for this project that are connected, first of all, to a tool, a concrete tool to support and nourish the culture of dialogue, especially to have a tool that enables us to know each other better. I'm speaking slowly so that the translation can proceed smoothly. Now, saying all of this, to know each other better, knowing the dialogue in the digital era, with social media, when everything is apparently just a click away, well, it looks pretty trivial. But if we think about this, if we stop and think, we can immediately realize that it is a very ambitious project indeed. Why? Because in continuing on this process of knowledge and sharing, we want to start with a paradigm that is very simple. It's a great challenge at the same time to always put the person, the human, at the center of this process of culture and dialogue. The program of the activities that we want to carry out with IDIAF wants to take into account this paradigm. We've done this today, giving space, and we listen to the voices of the young scholars, to 3 young students who are going to share with us their impressions, and also the decision to have the kickoff of this new institute, of this new forum, not an institute really, because we don't want to talk about a heavy structure, with the kickoff at the same time of a forum, youth, to which Mr. Tajani cares very much, about which he cares very much, and he was the one who decided to create this youth forum, to launch this institute, responds to the need to involve all actors of the processes. Talking about the future, as Director General Bry was saying before, without giving the opportunity to express to those who are going to be the protagonists of the future, well, this would be paradoxical. However, it shouldn't be taken for granted. So, as you could see in the program of these first few days, the programs that we're starting, it starts with the first module of learning dedicated to the Horn of Africa, focusing in particular our attention on Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somalia and Djibouti. We wanted to start with this region because to this part of the African continent we are connected through history. History that dates back centuries ago. We want to start from this history to create an increasingly strong bond with these countries. And also in this case we're going to tell the Horn of Africa with the histories of people and their stories that have worked in this region of the African continent. Now, for the next meetings, we are creating a calendar of global initiatives that will transversely discuss about the African continent and its relationship with Italy. We do not yet have a final program because our hope is that from today's event some insights will result from this event that will help us in the future. We want to have a forum of young people for sustainability, the Agenda 2030 for the United Nations, for the Agenda 2063 of the African Union that's been mentioned several times. We'd like to talk about cultural topics and the contribution of Africa to the development of intercultural dialogue. The role of the cultural heritage in its double dimension, material and immaterial, tangible and intangible. Another key topic, a strong topic, and I'm going to mention just a few, it could be the role of anthropological missions and the role in scientific terms, in terms of factual development and growth, cultural tourism, valorization of several areas, or better knowledge, better mutual knowledge. And about the culture, the African continent can offer a very strong push towards the development of a debate on creative and cultural industries and their impact on local economy, education and professional training. We'd like to talk about African cinema, African sport and music, and many other activities connected to cultural industries. Now, in terms of professional dimensions and all the tools, the most effective tools to improve the relationship, the training and the entry into the labor market. In other words, we're thinking of a calendar that takes stock of the reality, stories of people. And starting from there, we can nourish the debate and the osmosis of knowledge in order to face together the global challenges. Now on this, we're not starting from scratch. Our partnership with Africa benefits from a huge Italian presence in the continent through history. History made of entrepreneurs, and we're going to have a day for Italian companies in Africa. Cooperants, volunteers, organization of the civil society, and we have a big representation here among us. I'd like to thank them and really expect their collaboration. Well, university students, archaeologists. I would like to thank the rector of the University Lateranense, Pontifical University Lateranense. Thank you very much for being here today and for announcing that he'd like to sign a memorandum of understanding with IDF for the activities that we can carry on together. We were thinking about a day on the presence of missionaries in Africa, for example, so thank you in advance. Now, all of this is a bond, a relationship fed by dynamism and the vitality of the African diaspora in Italy. Well, what I mentioned are just a few hints that we can discuss further. We could talk about the Mattei Plan, and I would like to thank our colleague, Mr. Ortona Weiss, chief of the mission created at the presidency of the Council of Ministers, that along with the special envoy of Minister Tajani, that is also part of the scientific committee, Dr. Massimo Riccardo, well, he's going to show the Mattei method. I'm not going to talk about the Mattei Plan, because the Mattei Plan looks something much more complex, but it's a Mattei method that is one of the priorities of our government. Well, but something is clear from all these initiatives. Today we're starting a new path together, starting a new adventure, and the success of this event depends on us and on how much we'll want to invest in terms of ideas, will, and availability, openness towards dialogue and debate. Now, after me, the chair of the CIMEST is going to take the floor, our friend and colleague, Minister Pasquale Salzano. He already has some ideas to share. So we'd like to invite others to follow this example and collaborate with us. This is the house of everybody, not only ambassadors, but also the civil society. We'd like to thank the ambassadors for being here present and for starting with us this new dialogue. I would like to wish you well in the task ahead. I'd like to wish all of us well in the task ahead, and we're here, available for remarks and suggestions and even criticism if constructive. Thank you very much. I'd like to leave the floor to the chair of CIMEST. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brai, Ambassador Le Monaco, and General Nardi. Today's event is taking place right after the approval of a norm at the Council of Ministers that you probably have read already yesterday. It was anticipated a few days ago by Minister Tajani. Now, there is an African funds, around 200 million for Italian companies who would like to invest in Africa or who are already present in Africa. Not only investing, but also importing from Africa. This is a new element, an element of novelty, but it's very useful in that approach that our Prime Minister many times said that it is a key element of the Mattei Plan. And as reminded by Mr. Brai and General Nardi, activities of training in terms of on-site training in Africa and also African people here in Italy. So with investments by this African plafond, that's called, in this specific sector. Now Siemens, as you know, is the company. It is in charge of accompanying Italian companies through investments with funds of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs managed by the Farnesina, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Italy, with two guidelines. First of all, to enter the capital of Italian companies that will open a branch abroad. In this case, the 200 million for Africa will be a reserve that will be pretty significant for operations of the Mattei Plan for Africa. And then through measures, important measures of subsidized finance that enable the whole presence abroad of Italian companies. So since the beginning, since the very first phase of assessments of markets of the African continent, through the creation of stable realities in Africa. In this case, and here we'll get to what Ambassador Lo Monaco anticipated, even in the field of companies in the industry of culture, we can intervene with these African funds. So companies who would like, in the field of culture, once again, that would like to invest in Africa, or that want to train African personnel in Italy, on the structures on site, well, they can have access to the measures that is in course of approval during these days by the government and the parliament. So I'd like to say that with a view to collaboration, we are studying a possible memorandum of understanding between us and CIMEST and the Institute, so that we can implement these measures as soon as possible. Thank you.
Bene, ora il programma.
Very well. Now, according to the program, we should leave the floor to our scholars. You have difficult names, I must admit. So I'm going to call you and you're going to introduce yourselves. I think that's better. First one, we have a biologist, researcher, Abdul Youf. He's going to tell us more about his experience. Yes, please, go ahead. Hi.
Buonasera. Vabbè, ottima la pronuncia, Abdou Diouf va bene.
Very good pronunciation. Abdou Diouf is perfect. First of all, I'd like to talk. I took some notes in the meantime. I'd like to start with a quote by Fabrizio De André, a singer. I grew up listening to his songs. I think this is the best place to quote him. I tried to learn the Treccani by heart, not a book of history. Well, I didn't do not one thing nor the other. I'm not going to take half an hour of your time, and I haven't learned the Treccani by heart. But since I was very young, and since I was little, we must say, since I was a child, I've always worked with an encyclopedia. I am a biologist and I am a writer. I wrote 2 novels. I have been living in Italy for 30 years. So while I'm talking, you're not going to think what a good Italian he has. And many often people tell me that, but I mean, I've been living here for 30 years. I'm almost Italian. I wrote 2 books in Italian. So sometimes I present at conferences, and people tend to focus on the way you speak Italian, but I'd like you to focus on the contents of what I'm saying. So I came to Italy when I was 4. I didn't come here with a dinghy boat. I came here because my father was here, and he was a cleaner. And me and my mother and my sister came here for the family reunification. And I was in Arezzo. I remember La vita è bella, life is beautiful. And I remember that that when they shot this film, they called all my classmates, but not me. And they asked myself, why was everybody invited apart from me? Well, and then doing this film, I realized that people were white in my classroom, and it would have been false to say the contrary. I was the only black. And then Benigni wrote a letter to me afterwards. We talked, and we sorted things out, we can say. So I studied in Arezzo, and then I graduated in Florence in biology. I am a biologist now. So between an exam and another, I started playing volleyball. I have been a volleyball professional player for 15 years. So from a biological point of view, from a sports point of view, and from a cultural point of view, I really feel Italian. I really feel part of this country. And I'd like to thank the ambassador for mentioning the diaspora. Well, we often talk about this migration, but we forget about the diaspora. There are many young people like me here, and I really think that the diaspora can play a key role in this dialogue between Italy and Africa, because these young people are present in two places at the same time. I'm here in Italy and in Senegal, and many people are like me. So my recommendation, at least, when we're going to start the works, is to start talking to this diaspora. I'm going to tell you about two experiences. First of all is I wrote a master's thesis about resistance to antibiotics, and I did this with Professor Renato Fani. And then I graduated. I didn't know what to do, and I took some gap years. And then one day I met with my professor, and they said, look, why shouldn't we try and do something with Africa, to study Africa? He said with Africa, not for Africa, and it's pretty different, I must say, because with Africa means collaboration. I grew up in a context in which everybody says, let's do something for Africa, as if Africa were a dumb child, a child that cannot do things on his own, a child that always needs something new, someone to explain the things to them. But Africa is not only this, Africa is much more than that. So my professor, before presenting the project, I took him to Senegal, because I believe it is important to go to the place before proposing something. So we went to Dakar. We had a tour, thanks to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Italy, and thanks to the scientific point of reference. He's in charge. This person is in charge of connecting the two universities. It is very important, and it is present there. So he organized a tour of the University of Dakar, the University of Saint Louis, and the University of Karlak. There, we presented our idea of the project. We talked about medicinal plants. That was what we're studying. So here in Italy we have echinacea and lavanda. In Senegal they have baobab and other plants. So putting together these two knowledge, we might find out something new about the antibiotic resistance. From here to 2050 there are going to be many more deaths, because our current antibiotics cannot kill many pathogens anymore. Well, anyways, we went there, we had this experience, and I put myself at a whole service of the University of Florence. I didn't have a role. I wasn't part of the University of Florence, but I really wanted to do this. I really wanted to put in contact with these people. So I went there during my free time. I started calling and creating relationships between the universities, to have people sign papers, etc. And then things went forward, and we left for Senegal. In Senegal, we met many professors, we signed agreements, and the rest is history. Well, we have 3 years of project between Florence and Dakar. Well, why did I tell you about this story? Because when I came back from Senegal, I was very happy. I said, wow, we can do something together. And the press release written by the Minister of Foreign Affairs said, vegetal biology agreement between the University of Florence and the University of Dakar. Present at the agreement, the professor and PhD, and the number and the name of the PhD. My name wasn't there. It let me down very much. I really worked hard for this, but my name wasn't even there. So I went home from holiday. I opened my WhatsApp and I wrote a message to the person who wrote the press release. I'm going to read this to you. Because I did a master in journalism and scientific dissemination, so I could write about this. But I wrote, I can write the next press release for you, if you want. Because in this one, you didn't put my name among the participants of the meeting and the project. So you lost a good opportunity to launch a message that is very important in Italy and in Senegal and Africa. The message was that diaspora and the scholars of diaspora become professionals and start working hard to create bridges between the two countries. So this was the message I wrote. I never received an answer, unfortunately. 2 more minutes and I'm done. I'll tell you more about what I'm doing now. Now I am a researcher with the Superior Institute of Health. My team is here today with Emilio Dugo, Roberto Giuseppetti, and Dr. Pietro Alano. And now we are working at environment and environmental research and pollution and water basins. And with them, thanks to the fact that I was lucky enough to meet people who have accepted my ideas and accepted them and welcomed them in their house. They welcomed my thought in their heads, I can say. It's not easy, I can tell you. And accepting my ideas, I put them in contact with Senegal. And in September, we're going to leave for a mission in Senegal, when we're going to meet new institutes and start new collaborations. Now, I would like to conclude my brief presentation. I have so many things to say, actually, but I'm going to close here with a quote. The director quoted an African proverb. I'm going to quote an English thought by George Shaw that says, if I have an apple and you have an apple, we exchange apples, we have an apple each. But if you have an idea and you have an idea and we exchange ideas, we have 2 ideas each. So this is my recommendation. Let's exchange ideas. Thank you very much.
Grazie, Dottor Diouf, per...
Thank you very much to Abdou Diouf for his remarks and for highlighting that we have to work together with and not for. Also reminding us about a not so happy moment, and we will keep this in mind because it is good to remember about mistakes that we have made in the past but that we should not make in the present. Now I would like to call Clifford Ogusu Kwateng, working in the Invest Your Talent project by Maishi Morisha Italy and Lewis University, to present his research project. Thank you very much.
Buonasera a tutti.
Good.
I would like to do my presentation in English. My name is Clifford Osukwat and I'm from Ghana in West Africa. I have a first degree in accounting from the University of Cape Coast and a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana and also a member of the Chartered Institute of Taxation Ghana. I have like over a year experience in audit and assurance before I had a scholarship to pursue my master's in Italy. My dream is actually to become a leader in international business, providing consultancy services through data-driven solutions, as well as business models through strategic partnerships. Today, I am actually honored to be given the opportunity to share my journey and experience in Italy. And before doing that, I would like to express my profound gratitude to the ambassador and all relevant stakeholders who made this meeting possible in order to afford them for their dedication to foster the relationship between Italy and Africa. This is something truly inspiring and empowering every individual from Africa to envision a brighter future beyond their current circumstances. Okay, so when I actually sought to study abroad, I wanted to have like a very high quality education in one of the most advanced economies. And I started my research, and surprisingly, Italy happened to be like one of the countries that provided Africans like a lot of scholarship opportunities. And these scholarships include the MAICI, that is the Italian government scholarship, the regional scholarships present in the country, the university-specific scholarships, as well as the Invest Your Talent scholarship, which I am actually a beneficiary to. This kind of scholarships actually provide us a low tuition or sometimes a free tuition, as well as some stipends, our health insurance, and sometimes even an opportunity to have an internship with some Italian companies. This gives us some necessary skills and knowledge needed in our professional development and career, and actually gives us a transformed perspective on how to work with people and with different traditions, languages, and then working opportunities. Another thing that also motivated me to apply to Italy was Italy's policies and commitment to sustainable finance initiatives, such as the ESG advocacies, the NRP initiatives, and then green financing, which I consider very vital for my career development and any other person who wants to study in Italy. So when I arrived, talking about my experience when I arrived in Italy, I can say like I am very, very close to achieving my dream. I am currently like studying a master's in corporate finance at Luis Guido Cali, a very popular school that has a global recognition, not just in Italy, like I mean worldwide. When you look at the QS ranking and the Financial Times ranking all over the world. This has not just transformed has not just given me like a quality education. They also provide like a better career services, a STEM designated curriculum, and that enable us to get like emphasis on the digital technologies and infrastructure efficiency, something that promises advanced learning opportunities to everyone who wants to study abroad. Another thing I also realized when I got here was like the cost of living when you compare like Italy to other advanced economies. Sorry, I also forgot to mention about like the tuition fees. When you compare like the high quality of education in Italy accompanied by the low tuition fees to other advanced economies, this is actually very surprising, because when you look at countries like UK, US, of course they are going to provide you that education, but at a very high cost, and then most students are kind of swindled with high debts, and this is something very bad to start their career development. So I'm actually very grateful to be given this opportunity. And back to the cost of living, I'll actually say Italy happens to be like one of the most affordable places for students to come and study in terms of accommodation, their transportation system, everything that makes it very easier for us to like afford and cater for ourselves. And I would advocate for every student, especially those in Africa, to kind of like come and have this experience I am having. Aside these ones, I would also talk about the educational system. When I entered here, I realized students kind of have like the convenience to take exams whenever like they feel confident of themselves. Something not very common in most countries. I also realized that students kind of like are given a second chance in life based on like their performance in the end of semesters, and sometimes like students get like a grade that they feel like it's not comfortable for them. The educational system gives them another chance, which I think is very important, that in this world people get second chances to prove themselves better, that they can achieve something. And this is something I would also advocate that, I mean, other countries could even emulate if they think like they can actually do better. And I'm actually proud to see myself in Italy and witnessing these experiences. Barring like this positive notes, there are also like some challenges that, I mean, like when you travel abroad, I mean, out of your home, like your comfort zone, you also witness some challenges. And as today is a platform to kind of advocate or like foster the relation between Italy and Africa, I would like to like iron out some two important points that I think if we look into can help like present more and better opportunities for Africa in Italy and then Italy in Africa. One include the international student support. Moving to Italy actually isn't really much a challenge, but when we come here as students, like in our first month, we kind of struggle like because we have like the language barrier and stuff. So I would advocate that like a lot of the scholarships should come with like international support units, for like the students who, it's not just about Africa, I mean like even those from other countries who come to study to make life easy for us. And this would act as a motivation for more students to come here to have an envision of their bright future. Another one I also advocate is something I feel like Italy is missing out, because looking at the amount of investment you make in us, giving us scholarships and stuff, I believe that after our completion of school, there should be like flexible structures that enable us to add value to your economy. In instances where like students kind of feel like they do not have access to these working opportunities, after tapping out your high quality education and skills, they would have to like move out to rather use this knowledge they gain from here to rather help other advanced economies. And I feel like if we work on this one, it will be together for our good, I mean, in Africa, and foster relations between Italy and Africa, and also motivate others to come here to study. Barring everything, I would like to conclude by thanking the organization once again for giving me this opportunity to present to you all and discuss on how we can foster a relationship between Italy and Africa. Thank you all once again.
E adesso, last.
Thank you very much. So last but not least, a woman, the voice of Claribel Catedua Arin, scholar of the University of Rome La Sapienza. She speaks Italian very well, and she's going to talk about her experience.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning, everyone. I am very happy to be here today with you.
Continue in English. It is a great honor for me to be here with you all today and to experience this wonderful meeting, especially seeing the efforts that Italy is putting in place to support all the sustainable development goals. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I want to thank the ambassadors and the organizers of this meeting. Thank you so much. I am Claribel Ahin, and I was born in Ghana. I lived the major part of my life in Ghana until I came here in 2018 to be united with my mother. I grew up without my mom because she had to move here to find a better life to provide for us back home. I started my university academic career in Ghana at the University of Cape Coast, where I studied Bachelor of Commerce in Finance. And I studied for 3 years and had to stop because I had to come here to be with my mom. Upon arriving here in Italy, I got the opportunity to study at the University of Bologna, alma mater, where I studied economic and finance using the regional scholarship Ergo for 3 years. When I completed, I got into Sapienza to study health economics, also with the regional scholarship Lazio Disco. So I am a fair example of how your education, your investment in education is going, because both of my bachelor's and master's is being done with regional scholarship. And thank you for this opportunity. My goal is to create and make impact in the health sector, which now is facing a lot of challenges due to aging population and also lack of health facilities and health personnel in developing countries, especially Africa. So I pray that someday I will be able, through my research and work with organizations and health ministries that play a direct role in health, to make impact in developing countries, especially Africa, with the knowledge that I've been blessed with here. Now, I would like to talk about something that worries a little bit. Anytime you tell someone you come from Africa, they are like, oh, Africa. And somebody said, there are a lot of poor people in Africa. And I'm like, it is not like that. Africa is bigger than what have been told to you people. You should see Ghana. You should see Accra in Ghana. You should see Nigeria. You should see Kenya. All these African countries are not just made of poor people. We have companies. Industrialization is beginning. And so I think if we want to talk about the connection between Italy and Africa, the first thing we need to look at is the knowledge of Africa. There cannot be relationship if both parties do not have enough knowledge of what Africa is. For example, when people talk about poverty, what is the cause of poverty, as you say, is in Africa? Is it because of war? Is it because that we have not yet fully industrialized as a continent? Or is it because of other things that we all don't know about? How do you solve a problem if you do not know the root cause of this problem? So interaction is important between the youth of Italy and Africa to share ideas. And I think these conversations should not start on the basis of hearsay or assumption or ignorance. Because then, how do we solve the problem? Ideas shared between young Italians, researchers, and even Africans brings a new perspective to the issue that is at hand. A new perspective from the side of the Italians. And then from the side of the Africans, it brings clarity to the situation and the solutions that are already existing to avoid overlaps and duplications. I also think that to do this, initiatives to bring both parties together is really important. For example, summer schools, exchange programs, internships in Africa, internships in Italy. And these things, it should not be just one way. It should be in the agreement of both parties here in Italy and in Africa. Programs like the Regional Scholarship, IYT, and several others have given educational availability to people from Africa. And I think this is a good thing that needs to be continued and not reduced. And I'm really grateful that from the speech we heard, it has been increased, and this is really a great news for all of us. A lot of people, my friends from Ghana, from Nigeria, from Congo and Cameroon have had opportunities to have a different educational experience by coming to Italy. And this has opened many doors for them in the international setting. So I would like to say thank you for giving us this opportunity. But it shouldn't just end there. It should continue. We should look at exactly what is going on in Africa. We shouldn't just neglect the part of health, neglect the path of industrialization, foreign direct investment. All these are important because Africa is growing. And as we all can see, fertility rate is really high there. I think, and if you would agree with me, that the future is in Africa. And we all should tap into it. Thank you.
Grazie.
Right, thank you very much, Clarabelle, and thank you to all of you actually for these great testimonies. Now, according to the agenda, we should have a Q&A session. If we have any questions, we will try and answer them. Otherwise, we would move on to the lunch, the multi-ethnic lunch, kindly offered by the Institute here, just outside the room. And we will resume our works in the afternoon with the kickoff of the Youth Forum and with a speech by Professor Beckeret Tsegai from East African Studies professor at the University of London. So, once again, thank you very much for being here. Now, in the folder that you have received, you can find the email and the contacts which you can refer. We are ready to welcome any suggestions, ideas, and especially we are ready to work with all of you. So do not hesitate to contact us. We will be at your disposal. We're really looking forward to collaborating with you, and I would like to thank the staff of Treccani, Director General, and Ms. Leonori, who is leading some extraordinary students working with us who have organized this event, and who will be happy to answer your questions and any requests you should have. Thank you very much. Any questions? Maybe, yes, one question. Yes, hello, good morning. First of all, I wanted to say hi to all of you. My name is Francesca Deglic. I am the president of the Association for African Studies in Italy. We are a network of 150 researchers and people working in the university field, and researchers especially on Africa. And among us, we also have some directors of ethnologic missions. We call them labs to avoid the term missions. We have these labs in Ghana, Ethiopia, Mozambique, Uganda, and Congo. So my question for you is, we were thinking about scholarships. Let's say universities are generally happy to welcome students, PhD students, or even not PhD, through scholarships. So I was interested in this, your program of scholarships. How is going to be structured? With which university or where is it going to unfold? Well, thank you for your question, first of all. I'm happy that you're here. The network is very, very important. And I know it personally, and I do share the choice of using the term lab and not mission. Now, as far as Treccani can work, we are not a public place. Treccani is a private place. It's with a public mission. It's probably the only Italian example of that. We have allocated an amount of the project, and you can find the opportunities on the website treccani.it. We have a number of scholarships, and the foundation has a number of scholarships, and the institute also has a number of scholarships. What we have done so far is creating a network with the Italian experience and all African countries. So we will be happy, now that we have begun this path, we will be happy to have a close contact and a relationship with your organization as well. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Good morning. My name is Raymond Fibelteus. I am an associate professor at the University of Siena. We have talked about language and culture dialogue, so I wanted to share my research experience, because the last investigation on Italian in the dissemination of Italian in other areas of the world, despite the fact that in Italy we do not have all the didactic material. In some situation we don't even have language labs, but the study says that despite all of this, Africa is one of the continents with the highest number of Italian students, so the people who study Italian. So I do share your idea of working on the linguistic side, and I think it's useful to dig deeper in this, because African students love Italian. Italian is much more than a language for them, so I think we should really focus on that, since the interest is very high. And then we also have the issue about African languages for Italians, especially we as University in Perugia, in Siena, sorry, we have just introduced Swahili, a Swahili course, and we have many people teaching Swahili at our university. And I think that's also another example of linguistic and cultural contact, to get to know Africa better. As we have said many times, it's not just when there is a war, but when we have these cultural values that are very high, we should use them for the benefit of the growth of both Italy and Africa. Thank you very much for this testimony by the University of Perugia and all the information. I wanted to tell you that in the afternoon we will have the presentation of the offers from Italian universities to welcome African students by Uni Italia, which is an association that is made up by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Research in Italy and other Italian entities and administrations. So this could be very interesting for you to, it would be interesting to talk to them about this. Right, yes. I also appreciated the question. Treccani has a series of startups that they have started, and one is aimed at the dissemination of Italian language. And I am the reciprocity, the mutuality between African and Italian languages is very dear to me. I was quite impressed because for the first time after 140 years, we have done this very important work, which is the Atlante Pinocchio, the Pinocchio Atlas. We have studied more than 200 languages in the world into which Pinocchio has been translated. So you see that the issue of languages is very important for the way in which this work has been represented, and this brings me to say that what you have highlighted is one of the topics that we have to follow with a closer look, with a lot of attention. Right, thank you very much. The Ambassador of Tanzania, who wants to say a few words.
First of all, I wanted to congratulate all the organizers of this session. With my 2.5 years experience here in Italy now, I can see the Piano Mattei taking the practical approach. Before it was more theory, we were talking, but now this is more practical approach I've seen. Secondly, I had the opportunity of traveling together with Ambassador Riccardo Rusconi and the whole delegation of Piano Mattei, because I was called by my country to be there to receive them, because they took them as a very serious committee with Piano Mattei and the 5 pillars of Piano Mattei. But as an ambassador, I saw something, a link missing. And I think you, as a private company with public intentions, can bridge that gap. And this is my comment, that these kind of sessions should continue to give more trust, faith, and remove the scare among Italians. This is not new. Italians have been there. And by taking good example of these young people, this is a key message to Italians as well. But secondly, I would like to comment that in the next sessions like this, you should also take examples of Italians who have been in Africa for the last 30 years. They speak our language, they know our culture, they know everything, and they feel themselves like Tanzanians. I have at least 5 of my friends whom I studied with their children when I was school, and they are my age now, and they are considering themselves as Italo-Tanzanians. So there is also similar kind of example. Let's not look on this side only. Let's look on the other side, because we have Italian families residing since Father Camilo in Tanzania, from Bologna, and they are Tanzanians now. If you see them, they speak Kiswahili, and one of them came with a delegation of the Prime Minister. So they can also come and give testimony. My third comment is, when I visited with the Italian business delegation, about 100 business people, to Tanzania for the business forum which was held in my country for the Italians, part of this CMES initiative, CEDEPE, SACE, etc. I realized one thing among the Italians. They were a little bit scared to invest, and they were asking a lot of questions about how are things in Africa on investment, what about if the laws change, what about the business guarantees and security. And we assured, now I'm speaking as Tanzania, but I guess this is for all Africans as well. We assured them, because we told them the example of other nations which are far from Africa than Italy, because Italy is very close to Africa. We gave them examples of nations that never spoke our language or even English, but they managed to do bigger investment. So the key issue which is missing here, between Piano Mattei, the private sector, SMEs, are institutions like yours. And I believe institutions like yours can fill in the gap, because we ambassadors are ready. My minister was here during Italy Africa, and yesterday, for information, my president spoke with your prime minister on the phone about the whole program of Piano Mattei and the delegation which was led by ambassador here in my country. He can tell you more of what happened. So I think from here onwards, we need to put more practical approach. No time to talk anymore. Let's make a move. Thank you very much.
Ambassador, thank you very, very much for your kind words. And since you quoted many times, especially in Envoy of the Minister Tajani for the Piano Mattei, give him some impression. Thank you.
Yes, before handing over the microphone to Massimo, I just would like to thank you for your intervention, because it makes me remind to my friend Andrea Boero, who came to Italy and is a very good friend of mine. He came with Tuflik and all the others from Tanzania, and we did some important experiences with them, also with animals. If you can remember, maybe that we brought this lion from Russia to Tanzania. So we are really in good touch, and I already spoke to him and to them to bring forward our relation and to have a different vision of Mattei plan. So thank you very much for your intervention. I pass over to him. To have one Andrea for each country.
Sì, chiederei anch'io a Massimo.
I would like to ask Massimo Riccardo, who is the soul of this experience that we are starting today with EDF. Apart from being a dear friend of ours, he's the delegate of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs at Piano Mattei. Please, Ambassador. Thank you very much.
Suggestion. I think it's very interesting, especially to involve the Italian living in Africa. There are many families that chose Africa for many reasons. I think they could be a very good ambassador also to transfer the experiences in Italy. When you speak about, to know a little more about Africa, it's very important. So when you speak about a country, you have to know what you speak about. I remember the first sentence that was written in an encyclopedia was made by UNESCO, La storia dell'Africa. The first sentence was, anche l'Africa ha una storia. It was fantastic. On the second one, we speak about more concrete experiences. For example, when General Nardi read the message of the Minister Tajani, we organized in Rome, in the Farnesina, a meeting very concrete between Italy system and the entrepreneur, African entrepreneur, all to show how important the private sector is for the Plan Mattei. Was organized at the beginning of May, was the first experiences. There was, I think, around 50 African organizations engaged in the enterprise. So if there was other technical question, we are really ready to organize some meeting also by the colleague of Prime Minister office, in our office, where you need. And I think we take the opportunity of Treccani to organize something on Mattei Plan to give more technical and concrete experiences also after this mission that we're organizing in Africa, as you mentioned, in Tanzania. We are leaving next week, we go in the South Africa, for the countries to speak about Plan Mattei, but also to, not to speak, but to listen from the African, especially because it's a dialogue, it's not a lesson, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Credo ci siano ancora degli
I believe we still have a few interventions. I'm really happy that the discussion has brought forward a debate. So I would leave the floor to...
Sono Giorgio Banti, sono professore emerito dell'Orientale di Napoli, dove ho insegnato.
My name is Giorgio Banti. I'm professor emeritus of the University of Naples, where I taught language and Somalian literature. I would like to start with echoing what the colleague of the University of Siena said. The Somalian language was often taught at the Third University of Rome by the professor who's going to take the floor tomorrow. At the Orientale of Naples, we have a long tradition of the teaching of the Somalian. I taught Swahili, your house, a very important language of Western Africa, an ancient language of Ethiopia, and Berberian, and Arabic, of course. The language of all countries of North Africa. I'm also been part of several years to the steering committee of the ISMEO, the ISMEO. So when it fused with ISAO, as Director General Bryce said, it ceased to exist, and most of the scholars who operated in the context of ISAO created this Institute of Private Law that is called ISMEO. It works not only on East, Middle East, and Extreme East. Today, Professor Manzo is going to talk about archaeological missions. Well, we have research projects, initiatives, philological initiatives, artistic initiatives, for example. At the moment, along with the Orientale di Napoli, we have a classification of Ethiopian papers in Italy with Professor Lusini, and several projects, linguistic projects. Moreover, the library of ISIAO was recreated and open to the public as an ISIAO library at the National Library of Rome in Castro Pretorio. I haven't heard very well before, but you haven't mentioned the program of scholarships, the Partnership for Knowledge. It was a big project with many scholarships. With the Orientale, I was partner of one of them. And it was extended until February of last year. And my question is there a continuity between this new program and this old program of scholarships announced by Treccani and by the new Institute of EDF, or is it something that is completely separate? Thank you.
Se posso rispondere, ovviamente.
If I may. The new ISMEO is very interested in this collaboration relationship. In this activity of the current ISMEO with Adriano Rossi, we have also organized in this room an exhibition dedicated to Iran. And of course, as I said before, all Italian entities involved in studies and exchanges in different countries are going to be more than welcome in a common dialogue. The effort that Treccani is making, and I'm saying this proudly, is to always act as a system, jointly. That's why I mentioned the Tullio Gregori. He wanted, since the beginning, it's very difficult that the name of one of us is connected to one of the Treccani activities. It's much easier that Treccani creates conventions and work relationships with all institutions that generously and scientifically work on this. Same goes with the Orientale di Napoli. Since the times of Mario Agrimi, when he was rector, we had conventions to work on certain projects, and also in this case it's going to be a great pleasure to reactivate them. Thank you. My name is Margherita Mussi.
Posso? Ecco, allora, perché ho sentito oggi...
Today I've heard an extreme openness to aspects that are very stimulating and interesting and encouraging about, among many different things, culture and UNESCO. And the presence of young people was extremely underlined. An intervention that was very significant, in my opinion, was the first intervention of these young people who talked to us. Something struck me about what's been said, that we shouldn't work for Africa, we should work with Africa. And this is because I am a scholar of, not of prehistory, but of deep history. And I started studying this in Italy. And in order to understand it, I had to go to Africa, I had to go to Ethiopia. Because as we know, and as I think it is important to underline, if we want to act as a system really, to work with Africa, and not for Africa, well, we all come from Africa. What we are today exists because Africa exists. And if it's true that the future is Africa, and this continent is young, well, also the past is Africa. I just wanted to say something that my French colleague François Sema said a few years ago. Invited to the Elysium, President Sarkozy asked him, "Do you have your family, Mr. Sema? Where is your family? Where does your family come from?" And his family said, "From Africa, like yours." Thank you. We have 4 more remarks. Please respect timings. Professor Colloca, University of Catania. One of the first universities with which we're going to start creating relationships, as I wish, with all of you who underlined the importance of working together. Thank you, Director. I would like to first of all thank you very much and thank Treccani for this opportunity that's been given to us over the last few months to start reflecting on topics that have explicitly shaped a cultural diplomacy. It's going to take even more shape in the future. In the future I'm going to make a speech about what the contribution of the University of Catania will be in this project. I would like to underline my availability as a community of sociologists of the environment and the territory, the National Council, as in order for some of the issues that have emerged that work on material and immaterial scenarios and that are reconnected to culture as a common good, because as we have some linguists and historians and anthropologists that have expressed their interest to understand what can come from the sociologists as well, those who study social and territorial activities. It is a key component also from a transnational point of view, in my opinion. And then also the possibility, I would like to declare it, that, of course, with the constraints of its resources, the University of Catania can give. We feel very close to countries of North Africa. We'd like to host scholars and residents who can create the reciprocity that, as our colleagues before said, before me, we really feel we want to be part of this. Thank you.
Grazie professore del suo intervento.
Thank you, Professor. Very kind words. Now, the floor goes to...
Buongiorno, grazie a tutti. Si sente?
The next speaker. Good morning, everyone. My name is Stefano Marcuzzi. I'm a researcher at the CASD, Center for Studies in Defense. Thank you for this initiative and for this project. Congratulations. And thank you for inviting us. We have a special focus on Africa in our CASD. We have several projects in North Africa and Sahel region. But our program is also to expand our viewpoint from a conceptual and thematic point of view and from a geographical point of view to increase our expertise on the continent for the strategic importance that this continent has for Italy, national security, and Europe as a whole. We already have some partnerships with African countries that have been sending representations for years from the Ministry of Defense. They come and take part in the ISMI course that is open to our allies and partner countries. But for the last 3 years, we've had a school of PhDs at the CAST. So we have around 10 scholarships at the Ministry of Defense every year. So this is an invitation to young researchers, African researchers, to take part in these scholarships that are open to our students, civil students, of course, not only military. For a few months, for the next few months, it's become University of Defense of Italy for the first time in our country. So on our side, we're very interested into establishing relationships and collaboration and open up to the voices, faces and stories of this continent. Thank you very much and good luck for the rest of this initiative. Thank you.
Sì, viva il lupo, passo la parola al generale.
Thank you. We need all luck. I leave the floor to Professor Nardi. He's in charge of this aspect. Yes, thank you. Thank you for this openness. Kastish discussed about this in June, about the Mattei Plan and the Euro-Atlantic perspective and the NATO interest. This debate was extremely successful in terms of participation if we think of political and military authorities that are present and ambassadors who were there in the countries of the Mediterranean and initiatives of cooperation of Istanbul. So this openness towards the young people is precisely what we were expecting. So not to stay close only to authorities, okay, so to those who know what should be done and how it should be done. But I'd like to echo the words of Professor Bry. Among the 3 verbs, the first one that was mentioned was listening. Now, listening to young people and giving them an opportunity to shine, like the CAST, that is a university of high level, it's been recognized. Well, we can keep carrying out in this together. Thank you for your intervention. Thank you for your availability. one or two more questions?
Buongiorno a tutti, complimenti per questa iniziativa culturale. Veramente dal profondo del mio cuore.
Good morning, everyone. Congratulations for this initiative. You see how it's been closed for many years, and it closed in a very bad way. And there was some void. The word dialogue is very important, also for Africans. Sorry, I haven't introduced myself, I'm sorry. My name is Adriana Piga. I taught for 40 years at La Sapienza, social history of Africa, especially Western Africa. Yes, I think it is impossible, it is incredible to think of talking about all African countries. In the past we've had Professor Kalkinovati, unfortunately he's not with us anymore. He was the only scholar who could talk about all the different dynamics of the whole African continent. Well, I specialized over the years on Sahel countries. And now, listening to this very interesting conference, I've had an idea. An ex abrupto idea, we might say, to create a panel on Western African countries, Sahel and other countries in Western Africa. For example, Ghana. We have Professor Mariano Pavanello. He retired, but he wrote many books on the traditions, oral traditions of Ghana, but not only. Well, I personally have studied with my students at the time, considering that they were completely ignorant about Africa. We have discussed several topics. I still remember, and I'm sorry to say this, I say sorry especially to our African colleagues. During the first lessons, they didn't know who Thomas Sankara was from Burkina Faso. They didn't know who Bourguiba was in Tunisia. There was a huge cultural void. And then over time, during my classes, I helped with my colleague Fausto Berletti. We have started to somehow plant our seeds of knowledge. I have so many students around the world. I studied Senegal with a extremely lively culture, extremely globalized, and young people are very important there. And I studied Niger, Sufi Islam, so Islam from the mystic pacifist tradition, and at the same time I interviewed the jihad leaders. So I humbly would like to propose a meeting on Western Africa, culture and Islam, because it is a founding key part in many countries of Western Africa. Thank you.
Grazie. Ovviamente in Treccani.
Thank you. Of course, Professor Viga is a very known figure of University of the Treccani Institute. We have Professor Lusauna, and we have many collaborators in this institute. I think it's a very good idea. We're going to take this into account. One last question. One last question, and then we'd like to invite you to our multi-ethnic lunch, and then we'll restart at 2:30. Thank you. My name is Dina Rosa Gemanga. I work in the Foundation Aurora, in charge of the consolidation of entrepreneurial initiatives in Africa and training of young people, Africans in Italy and Africans that study in their own countries. We collaborate with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the program of scholarships that was mentioned in the message of Minister Tajani. We have Africa Education that is about training students who are present here, African scholars in Italy, to publish articles through digital platforms to valorize the African continent. Now, among the different initiatives, my question, to sum up, because it's late, consider that Africa has many characteristics. like the processes, the fragmented processes, because there is often a lack of access to credit, difficulty in mobility. For infrastructures, the linguistic and cultural variety in the same country. There are several languages and culture. How can EDF and this network on collaboration have a concrete local impact? Because we were saying that we need to respond to the goal of putting people at the center. Because we shouldn't avoid this to be like a theoretical kickoff. When we work, we always try and involve people from a local point of view. We want things to be effective because the time of words is up. So I would like to know more about the local involvement and the network of partnerships. And if there is an opening to work with foundations in the charity sectors or social companies, that can be a bridge between the long-term goals and the local concrete challenges. Thank you.
Ha toccato temi davvero molto importanti, anche molto concreti.
Thank you. Your question is very interesting, and thank you for touching upon these topics. This is one of the questions that we've asked ourselves many times, the presence on the territory. Treccani is a small institute. We should take this into account, but with the help of all of you, I work every day to work as a system in our country. It is sometimes difficult. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs really helped us and heard us. And to all of you in your intervention and all the organizations in this sector. Well, they are, of course, our interlocutors. So my wish is that it can really help us in this commitment. General Nardi might want to add something to this. Yes, thank you. I think that we need to try and, as Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to put our network at the disposal of everyone on the field, so that we can have a direct interaction between the civil society in the places where we want to act. We identified for the first year a few areas, and our representatives in the areas are those who are going to give us the direct contact. Because of course we need to take advantage of our ambassadors there, so that on the field they can identify with your help the organizations with which we can put in practice our projects. So from here, from Rome, it's pretty difficult. There is a big fragmentation in these countries, and we need to be able to combine this puzzle and make it become a whole picture, a complete picture. We're going to do this with our networks. Thank you.
Sì. Solo per ricordare che
Tries to remind that the network of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in terms of presence on the African territory already has the Italian Institute of Culture. We need to work with them. We need to work all together. Thank you for this opportunity that is offered to us today by these stimulating proposals that we've just heard. Thank you very much.
Adesso, se avete piacere, condividete.
Now, we'd really like to invite you all to share our lunch, and then we go back to work. Thank you.